Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So let me make sure volume and everything else is up. This is going to be pretty brisk. I have an interview coming up with Jared Beck. He's going to be here in roughly 30 minutes, give or take a few minutes. So that's coming up at 6 p.m. Eastern. The Nunes Memo is out. So this is one of the stories that I've been following. Representative Nunes, put out a memo that Republicans say will clear Donald Trump. Now, the point that they're trying to make is that the investigation into Trump and Russia was marred by essentially corruption. They weren't necessarily being fair, and there was an abuse of power in the way that the FBI pursued the case itself. Now, you've heard me make the case before that I believe that, yes, this is political to some degree, but just because it's political doesn't necessarily mean that they're wrong. It doesn't mean that they're wrong. When you're looking at one person after the next that was associated with this case, it looks a little strange. You have one guy's wife getting paid off by somebody associated with Hillary Clinton. You have another guy sending text messages bashing Donald Trump. That same guy sending the text messages with Donald Trump to the wife or to the woman that he's sleeping with and cheating on his wife with. He's also instrumental in getting the investigation started with Donald Trump and Russia, and also instrumental in making sure Hillary Clinton wasn't perp-walked. This looks a little strange. So when Republicans are saying this looks like corruption is taking place, this looks like the FBI was being uneven or wasn't playing with clean hands, this looks like they were being somewhat heavy-handed or ham-handed in the way they went about the investigation with Trump and Russia. They're not crazy for asking those questions. The Nunes Memo was just released today. And so I want to go over parts of that memo. Let's see. Let's flip this over. Pretty brisk. Yeah, let's flip this over. Give me 1 second. Nunes Memo published after Donald Trump declassifies controversial document. Now, the FBI didn't want this out. And, it's like, does the FBI want a document out that alleges that the FBI showed an abuse of power? I would imagine not. When police murder innocent civilians, do the police want an investigation into the police department that allowed the person to murder those civilians? No, they don't. Most people don't like to be investigated. The FBI is no different than anybody else in this case. If they do something and there's some kind of abuse of power, the last thing they want is that abuse of power to be displayed to the world. So again, they have a dog in the hunt in the same way. So yeah, they're not going to want this information released. Democrats' complaint is he's cherry-picking information to make it look like Mueller is something other than a paragon of virtue. Mueller's a paragon of virtue, and Donald Trump has no right saying anything bad about that man. That's their argument, the cherry-pick argument. The fact is, you've called this man everything but a child of God. You've hit him with everything other than the kitchen sink. And even going so far as to say the guy got peed on, or the guy paid a hooker to pee on the bed that Barack Obama slept on. Michael Wolff did an entire book that was, basically a gossip column. You guys have said pretty much all sorts of things about Donald Trump. And now in this moment where they're saying we have something that clears his name, we have something that's showing some level of corruption in the FBI, you don't want him to release it. You have to release it. You have to. Just from a fairness standpoint, you've attacked the guy. The guy has the right, has the capability of trying to defend himself. Now, if they say this defends him, if they say this clears his name, if they say this shows an abuse of power that is somewhat flagrant and it spells the end of the Russiagate thing, then the document has to be released. And it has to be evaluated with whether or not it actually shows what Republican says it shows. Let's take a look at the document, or at the very least some parts of the document. I'm going to go over the article, and I'll do the article or the document itself later. But at the very least, we can get a snapshot of what's involved. Let's look at Donald Trump's reaction. Donald Trump was asked about this. So let's see what Trump has to say.
It's terrible. You want to know the truth? I think it's a disgrace. What's going on in this country, I think it's a disgrace. The memo was sent to Congress. It was declassified. Congress will do whatever they're going to do. But I think it's a disgrace what's happening in our country. And when you look at that, and you see that, and so many other things, what's going on, a lot of people should be ashamed of themselves, and much worse than that. So I sent it over to Congress. They will do what they're going to do. Whatever they do is fine. It was declassified. And let's see what happens. But a lot of people should be ashamed.
So what are you saying, Trump? People should be ashamed? Yes, people should be ashamed. Now, you're saying it's a disgrace? It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace. They should be ashamed of themselves, you bastards. I love it. All right, so Trump has allowed the release of the memo. And to be fair, from a politics standpoint, he didn't have a choice but to release the memo. People may take issue with him having to go at Mueller and everything else. From a politics standpoint, they have to go at Mueller. Trump himself can't necessarily do that. He's spent a bit of political capital when he fired Comey. But other Republicans, if they're trying to protect the head of the president, then yes, they're going to attack Mueller. They're going to attack the thing that's attacking the thing that's attacking the guy. So it makes perfect sense in the world that they're going to throw up some kind of something to try to impeach the credibility of the person who's going after Trump. The catch of it is, are they right? Are they right? Let's take a look at the memo. Let's see what Nunes is talking about. Republicans on Friday released a controversial memo that alleges an abuse of power by the FBI in its investigation into Russian meddling in the 2016 election after Donald Trump declassified the document and accused top officials of bias. The House Intelligence Committee Chair, Devin Nunes, published the memo minutes after the president's approval, despite a warning from the Department of Justice that would be a quote-unquote reckless act. How dare you show us abusing our power and authority? Democrats have portrayed the memo as a crude attempt to undermine the credibility of Robert Mueller investigation into possible collusion between the Kremlin and members of the Trump campaign. You know, the wild part about this is they will scream to high heaven that, you know, this memo is casting aspersions, this memo is doing this memo is doing that. They've made no link between Trump and Russia, and yet they've screamed about it completely for the past year and a half. You've shown nothing. They're showing that, look, there might have been an FBI might have done something that the FBI had no business doing, and this investigation may be bogus as a result of it. They're withholding certain information that the FBI needed to see. Essentially, they're not giving people the information that they need, and this investigation was started on a false pretext. That's the premise. That's the point that they're trying to get at. Let's keep going. Right. The 4-page memo released with a letter from the White House alleges that the FBI omitted key information when it applied for the wiretap on advisors of the Trump campaign. The findings raised concerns with the legitimacy and the legality of the Department of Justice and the FBI interactions with the court that approval surveillance requests, the memo said. It also claims that they represent a troubling breakdown of the legal processes established to protect American people from abuses. Essentially, they're spying on us. And the information that they gave in order to get the approval to spy on us was missing details. It's almost like Trump is trying to say they shaped the information in order to get the desired result that they wanted. Not so much that they gave information with full context. They gave information slanted in a way to make sure that the investigation against Trump will be approved. So let's keep going. Come on. The memo's central claim is that the FBI omitted context in its application to surveil the Trump advisor, Carter Page. The document notes that the FBI used material compiled by the former British spy Christopher Steele, whose work was funded by Democrats, and who the memo said was desperate that Donald Trump not get elected and was passionate about him not being president. I am passionate about you not becoming president of the United States. That's hilarious. The memo also claimed that the FBI, quote-unquote, terminated Steele as a source because he spoke with the media, and that text between an FBI agent and an FBI attorney demonstrated a clear bias against Trump. The agent was removed from the investigation in December. The release follows a week of partisan rancor over the memo in Washington, and Democrats and former law enforcement officials swiftly condemned the declassification, joined by at least one senior Republican senator, John McCain. John McCain doesn't like Donald Trump, so that's not all that surprising. The latest attack on the FBI and the Department of Justice served no American interests, no party, no president, only Putin, McCain said on Friday. That's amazing. That's amazing. The President of the United States trying to defend himself against a claim that they haven't been able to substantiate at all for the past year and a half or 2 years. They haven't been able to substantiate. They surveilled his campaign. Trump is making the point they illegally surveilled my campaign. And John McCain is like, well, the only reason Donald Trump would release this memo showing that the FBI was behaving inappropriately, or at the very least the FBI was behaving unfairly or in a biased way towards one of the campaigns against one of the other campaigns, is that you're working with Vladimir Putin. You must be working with Putin. Sad. That's a sad man. That's an extraordinarily sad, sad man. Just like the other idiot on MSNBC saying that Devin Nunes is a Russian plant. Is it possible that Nunes is a Russian operative? Is he a Russian agent? Because he's releasing a memo showing that the FBI was abusing its fucking authority? It's like, shit, man, come on. By the way, whether Nunes is right or not, it's not necessarily besides the point. But certainly the information should be released. Like, I don't even understand why there's an argument about releasing the information. Democrats, the FBI, yes, they don't want the information released because they feel that this helps Donald Trump. This is politics. This is purely partisan rancor. Yes, and Republicans want it released because they want to help Donald Trump. So yes, both sides have a dog in a hunt. I'm just making a point that if there's an abuse of authority, then that should be looked into. Especially if that's an abuse of authority dealing with one of the campaigns against another campaign. That is a big fucking deal. That's a big fucking deal. It is sad and pathetic that John McCain believes that trying to protect the democracy of sorts, or protect the representative government from overreach of the surveillance state, is somehow tantamount to working with Vladimir Putin. That is sad and pathetic. That is sad and profoundly pathetic. In a rare statement, the FBI Agents Association mounted a defense of the rank-and-file agents it represents. The men and women of the FBI put their lives on the line every day, the association said, because of their dedication to our country and their Constitution. I have no idea what that has to do with what's being said. It sounds like, and I've done reports on this, based on the information that's just available before this memo came out, that there were people who were immensely partisan working in the FBI that was doing two things: making sure Hillary Clinton was not perp-walked, and making sure that there was some investigation with Donald Trump, even though they could not substantiate anything that they were bringing up in regards to the investigation. Put their lives on the line every day. Yes, I'm pretty sure they do. A lot of people put their lives on the line every day. That doesn't necessarily mean that you should be able to overstep your authority. I don't give a shit whether it's the President of the United States or if it's the baker down the street. There's a problem with the surveillance state that can do something like this. And it is a big fucking deal that these guys are willing to fall in line from the standpoint of, we shouldn't show information that the surveillance state is overreaching. We shouldn't show that. That should be hidden. That should be state secrets. No, that information should be shown. It should be shown. It should be evaluated for what it is, especially if it resolves the garbage of this Russiagate idea. I've been talking about this shit for a year and a half. They have nothing to show for it. All right, so let's see. All right, right here. Weinstein had oversight of the special counsel investigation, and his removal will pass that oversight to another person, threatening to close or cripple the investigation. Early on Friday morning, Trump disparaged leaders of the FBI and Justice Department. He disparaged them in a tweet. I love it. Accusing them of partisan bias. He later spoke to reporters, telling them a lot of people should be ashamed of themselves. Asked whether he still had confidence in Rosenstein, he said, "You figure that one out." In a letter, the White House counsel Don McGahn acknowledged extraordinary circumstances around the memo and said that the president can declassify information when the public interest and disclosure outweighs any need to protect the information. Yes. Flat fact. That's true, yes. To be clear, he added, the memo reflects the judgment of its congressional authors. Adam Schiff, the leading Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, said the memo's sole purpose was to circle the wagons around the White House and insulate the president. Yes, maybe, but again, it doesn't mean that it's not true. Both of those things can be true. Yes, Republicans have a partisan thing and a dog in a hunt. Yes, Democrats have a partisan dog in a hunt. Yes, when they're screaming about Russiagate and Trump and Russia, they don't have anything to show for it. They keep screaming it because they have a dog in a hunt. This is purely politics. They don't want to talk about themselves. They want to talk about anything other than themselves, meaning Trump and Russia. This is politics. This is unreality. So it's somewhat laughable that they're screaming about this memo being somewhat unreality when they themselves are engaged in a certain amount of unreality. Yes, the memo has come out. And yes, the memo just reflects the congressional opinion, or the opinion of the of the author who wrote it. But again, that doesn't make it wrong. And it needs to be evaluated to some degree for what it is. And if in this memo you're saying that, yes, this author of the memo is right in some of the things that are taking place. Yes, that person got money. Yes, that other person was against Trump and yet working on the Hillary Clinton case and the Donald Trump. Yes. Those things look problematic. Yes, Comey was instructed to talk in a particular way that went against what was actually taking place in reality, meaning melding what he was doing in regards to the investigation with what was being said in the messaging of the Hillary campaign. It looked as if the Justice Department and intelligence services were being politicized. That's what it looks like. So if one of the congressional members does an investigation on this and says, this is my findings on this, this is my opinion on what's taking place. Yes, there's going to be some partisanship in it because he's a Republican, he's a politician. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're wrong. Just looking at it, it looks sketchy. It looks sketchy. I'm just saying, all of the stuff surrounding this case with regards to this investigation looks sketchy. The memo should be evaluated for what it is. It should be in public. So, you have a bunch of canned responses. Democrats don't like it. Republicans think it's the most necessary thing in the world. The FBI doesn't want to show it. So let's keep going. The memo also contained material that was deemed classified, meaning the president's consent was required for release. For days, law enforcement officials objected to its release, but Trump was overheard on Tuesday, leaving a State of the Union address telling lawmakers he's 100% supported the memo's release. That he overruled the FBI concerns has raised fears he means to undermine the Bureau's work. What? At which point did the FBI become the word of God? At which point did the FBI become the word of God? The president has the authority to make those choices. Just because somebody gives your opinion doesn't necessarily mean you have to take their opinion. You can tell them fuck off. They can give you a good idea. They can give you a bad idea. They can give you somewhere in between. It is the discretion of the president to make the choice. Why is it troubling? Why is it troubling that the president made a choice that didn't necessarily listen to what the FBI was saying? It is his authority to do so. Get over it. Get over it. There's nothing suspicious about the president deciding to do that. He overruled raised concerns that he was going to undermine the Bureau's work. I've read both memos. Democratic Representative Ruben Gallio tweeted Thursday, "What's clear to me is the role of the sole intent of the Nunes Memo is to give Trump administration cover to fire Rosenstein." Let's see. And John McCain giving a canned response. So James Comey, the former FBI director who was fired by Trump last year, reacted to the memo with incredulity. "That's it?" he asked on Twitter. "Dishonest and misleading memo wrecked the White House Intel Committee, destroyed the trust with the intelligence community, damaged relations with the FISA court, and inexcusably exposed classified information on American citizens. For what? DOJ and FBI must keep doing their jobs." Yes, they must keep doing their jobs. The question to this is, did they overstep their authority? And not just overstep their authority, were they biased in the way that they were pursuing the investigation on both ends? In the sense of letting Hillary Clinton off and creating an investigation for Trump. And that question needs to be explored. The question should be explored. This idea of releasing classified information. They use classified information to hide from the stuff that they do. Their foibles and fuck-ups and things they don't want the public to know. This is not always going to keep somebody alive. They use that term of, we're protecting lives, man. We're protecting lives by keeping this a secret from you. Usually what they're protecting is themselves. What they're protecting is themselves. Donald Trump had every right to release this memo. So I'm going to leave that here. I'm not going to tarry too long on this because I have to prepare for the next show. I'm going to put this at the bottom, and at some point I'm going to go through the memo itself. Or at the very least I may comment on it to see what's actually in it. I mean, they said there's classified materials. That kind of piques my interest. But let's see. I take one or two comments. Torben Chris Glees. There's so much misinformation and wrong talking points in this whole thing. It's even hard for me to know what is what. And I live here in Germany, watch German TV and alternative media. Agreed, man. When you hear me make this point of all of the people have a dog in a hunt. So there's a bias throughout the entire situation. This guy's going to has a canned response because you already know the position that this person wants. The other guy has a canned response. You know the position that he wants. How can you find truth and honesty in a situation like that? You can't. You can't. I would say you air it out. You put the information out that's there. You try to come to some conclusion with the information out that's there. But in regards to getting it true, accurate, completely, this is the way it is, impossible. I think it's impossible. So I'm going to end this here. BB Hammer, such a joke about the argument that Memo was sensitive in how they classified classification systems out of control. Just all the information was already in public report. Yeah. The stuff that they're saying on here was already reported. Yeah, agreed. Agreed. All right, guys, I'm going to end this. I'm going to be back in like 5 minutes with Jared Beck. Jared Beck is the DNC fraud lawsuit lawyer, the attorney that brought the fraud lawsuit, and he also has a book out. So stay tuned. 5 minutes or so later. Thanks, guys. If you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the Patreon. Thanks, everyone.